Hello and welcome back to DFC Books. It is genuinely great to have you with us again for another session.
It's good to be back.
We have a massive, and I mean a truly massive topic ahead of us today. But before we dive into the deep end, I want to open the floor immediately to you, our listener.
Yes, please.
We are constantly building and refining our reading list based on what you want to hear. So please, right now, jump into the comments section and leave us your specific book requests for future episodes.
Seriously, whether it's sci-fi, history, or, ancient philosophy, we read them.
We love them, and they really do shape the show.
That is right. The best deep dives always come from the community because they challenge us to look at things we might have missed.
Exactly. And speaking of challenges, today we are tackling a titan, a behemoth of Western literature.
That is not an overstatement.
We are looking at the Aeneid or Eneida by Virgil. This isn't just a book. It is the ultimate origin story of the Roman Empire.
Right. Think of it as the sequel to the Trojan War and, in a way, the prequel to everything we think of as Western civilization.
It's just that influential.
It is arguably the most influential poem in human history. And for this deep dive, we're looking at a very specific and interesting source.
I'm really excited about this.
We are working from a bilingual edition, which features the original Latin text right alongside a Portuguese translation by Manuel Odorico Mendes, and it's published by Monte Cristo Editora.
Which is a cool angle because it gives us that bridge between the ancient language and a modern Romance language. A direct line, in a way.
A very direct line.
But before we get lost in the plot, I want to set the stage. We are talking about Rome, but this isn't a history textbook. What is our mission today? Because staring down 12 books of epic poetry can feel a little intimidating.
It really can. Our mission is to walk through all 12 books of the epic, chapter by chapter, but we aren't just going to list what happens. That's boring. We need to analyze this incredibly complex cast of characters and ultimately understand how Virgil constructed a national myth. And he's balancing two massive things here. On the one hand, the glory of the Roman Empire, the propaganda aspect, and on the other, the terrible, tragic human cost of building that empire.
Right. It's not just Rome is great, hooray. There's a lot of sadness in there. But let's look at the author first. Who was Virgil and why did he write this?
So Publius Vergilius Maro, or Virgil as we know him, lived from 70 BC to 19 BC. And this is a critical time. He was writing this during a massive transition.
What was happening in Rome?
The Roman Republic, the democracy effectively, had just torn itself apart in decades of bloody civil wars. It was chaos. And out of that chaos, the empire was rising under a new leader.
Augustus Caesar.
Exactly, the first emperor.
So this was a commissioned work, right? It wasn't just Virgil sitting under a tree thinking, I'll write an epic. The emperor basically said, write me a legend.
Essentially, yes. Emperor Augustus commissioned this work to provide a legendary lineage for Rome. He wanted a story that could stand up to Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, but one that also proved Rome was destined by the gods to rule the world.
So Virgil is threading a really fine needle here.
A very fine needle. He has to create high art that rivals the Greeks, which is no small task, but it also has to serve as political legitimacy for a brand new autocratic regime.
Talk about pressure. Write the greatest poem ever. And by the way, make sure it makes me and my new government look divinely ordained.
No pressure at all.
But there's a theory that Virgil didn't just write propaganda, right?
Yeah.
That he snuck something else in there, kind of subtext.
That is the critical lens we absolutely have to use today. There is a concept that scholars often call the two voices of the Aeneid.
The two voices. Okay.
There is the public voice of triumph. Rome is eternal, Augustus is a god, our destiny is manifest. But then there is the private voice, a voice of sorrow and regret.
The human cost you mentioned.
Exactly. Virgil constantly focuses on the victims of empire, the people who get crushed by the wheels of destiny, the collateral damage.
I love that. It adds so much texture and complexity. It's not just a cartoon.
Not at all.
Now, before we get into the Odyssey years and the Iliad years, let's break down the players on the board, because there are a lot of names, and they all sound kind of similar if you're not used to them.
A very wise move. Let's start with the man himself, Aeneas, or Aeneas, as he's rendered in the Portuguese text.
The guy the book is named after. Is he just a Roman Superman? You know, flying in to save the day?
Not exactly. He isn't a typical action hero like, say, Achilles from the Iliad. Achilles was defined by his rage, by his ego, his personal honor. Aeneas is defined by something else entirely. Pietas.
Pietas. Okay, that sounds like our word piety, but I have a feeling it means more than just being religious or going to church on Sundays.
Oh, much more. In the Roman context, pietas is a rigid hierarchy of duty. It means duty to the gods first and foremost, then duty to the state, to your country, then to your family, and lastly, dead last, to yourself.
Now, your own feelings and desires.
They don't even really register. Aeneas is constantly referred to as pious Aeneas. He's the son of the goddess Venus and the mortal Anchises, and his whole motivation isn't personal glory. It's fulfilling a destiny that has been laid out for him.
So he constantly has to suppress his own desires to do what must be done.
All the time.
Which makes him a bit of a tragic figure in his own right. He rarely gets to do what he actually wants. He's just a vessel for history.
A perfect way to put it.
Okay, so that's our hero, or our protagonist anyway. Who's the first major complication he runs into?
That would be Dido, the Queen of Carthage.
Yeah.
And she's a fascinating, powerful character. She's not just a love interest.
What's her backstory?
She's a refugee herself. She had to flee Tyre in the Middle East after her brother murdered her husband for the throne. She led her people across the sea to found Carthage in North Africa. She's a strong leader, a builder of cities, a lawgiver.
So she's Aeneas' equal, in a way. Another founder.
In many ways, yes. And spoiler alert, she's the love interest. But she represents something very dangerous to Rome, doesn't she?
What's the danger?
To a Roman audience, Dido would immediately remind them of Cleopatra.
Ah, yeah.
She represents the East, luxury, emotion, passion, and a powerful woman who could derail a Roman leader's sense of duty. She becomes a tragic figure because she falls victim to the machinations of the gods and her own overwhelming and, frankly, magically induced love for Aeneas.
We are going to have a lot to say about Dido later. She's one of the most memorable characters in all of literature.
Yeah.
Okay, so if Aeneas is the hero, who is the villain?
Well, in the second half of the book, the primary antagonist is Turnus. He's the prince of the Rutulians, a local tribe in Italy.
And he's not just a mustache-twirling bad guy.
Right.
Virgil gives him more depth than that.
No, and this is where Virgil's genius really shines. Turnus is described as a second Achilles. He's brave, he's proud, he's fiery, and honestly, he has a legitimate grievance.
It was his claim.
He's fighting to protect his land from these foreign invaders, the Trojans, and he's fighting for his claim to the princess Lavinia, whom he was supposed to marry before Aeneas ever showed up.
So from his perspective, he's the hero defending his home against an alien invasion.
Precisely. And Virgil allows us to see that perspective. He makes Turnus sympathetic, which complicates the whole good versus evil narrative.
Now, we can't talk about an ancient epic without talking about the gods. They're constantly meddling, pulling strings. Who are the heavy hitters here?
You have two main forces on the celestial chessboard. First, there's Juno. She is the primary antagonist deity. She hates Troy with a passion.
Why the grudge? What did the Trojans ever do to her?
A few things. Goes way back. She's still mad about the judgment of Paris, an old beauty contest she lost to Aeneas' mother, Venus.
Still holding a grudge over a beauty contest.
She is the goddess of marriage, so it was a deep insult. She's also mad that Ganymede, a Trojan prince, was chosen as Jupiter's cupbearer. But her main motivation is her love for the city of Carthage. And she knows the prophecy. Rome is destined to one day destroy Carthage.
So by stopping Aeneas from founding Rome, she's tried to save her favorite city.
Exactly. She is the agent of delay. She knows she can't ultimately stop fate, but she can make the journey as painful and bloody as possible.
So she's playing 4D chess to save Carthage. And on the other side, pulling for Aeneas.
You have Venus, of course, Aeneas' mother. She is constantly intervening, sometimes pretty ruthlessly, to ensure her son survives and fulfills his destiny.
So it's a cosmic proxy war between a protective mom and a jealous, resentful stepmother.
In a way, yes. And caught in the middle are the humans. We have Anchises, Aeneas' father. He represents the past, tradition, the lineage, and wisdom. Even after he dies, his influence guides Aeneas from the underworld.
And then there's Aeneas' son.
Ascanius, who is also called Iulus.
Why is the double name important? That seems like a specific detail.
Iulus is a direct and not very subtle link to the Julian dynasty. Julius Caesar and the Emperor Augustus both claimed direct descent from this boy.
Ah, there it is.
So Ascanius represents the future. He is the living link to the emperor who paid Virgil to write the poem.
Got it. Propaganda alert. And finally, we have a group of characters I like to call the tragic youth.
Yes, this is a recurring theme. Pallas, Lausus, Nisus, and Euryalus. These are young, beautiful, promising men who die terrible, pointless deaths.
And Virgil uses them for a specific reason.
He uses them to highlight the absolute horror and cost of war. They are the collateral damage of empire building. Their stories are where Virgil's private voice of sorrow really comes through.
All right, the board is set. The pieces are moving. Let's get into the story. The Aeneid is famously split into two distinct halves, right? It mirrors Homer.
It does, very intentionally. The first 6 books are often called the Odyssey years because they mirror Homer's Odyssey. It's all about wandering monsters and adventure on the sea. The last 6 books are the Iliad years, mirroring the Iliad, all about war, sieges, and heroic duels on land.
Okay, let's unpack part 2 of our outline now, the Odyssey years. We start with book 1. And Virgil doesn't start at the beginning of the story, does he? He throws us right in.
No, he starts in media, in the middle of things. It's a classic epic move. The Trojans have been wandering for 7 years since Troy fell. They are finally sailing, getting close steadily. They can almost taste it.
But Juno sees them.
And she's furious that they are still alive and so close to their goal. So she goes to Aelus, the king of the winds, who keeps all the winds locked up in a cave.
And she basically bribes him, right?
She does. It's a bit sordid. She says, I'll give you a beautiful nymph for a wife if you unleash your winds and smash these Trojan boats.
Corruption in high places, even among the gods.
Exactly. Aeolus agrees and unleashes a massive storm. It's a chaotic, terrifying scene waves like mountains crashing, ships spinning, men drowning.
And what's Aeneas doing?
Aeneas's first words in the entire poem are actually a wish for death. He cries out, wishing he had died back in Troy with his friends. It immediately establishes his weariness, his trauma. He's not a gung-ho hero.
But then another god steps in.
Neptune, the god of the sea, pops his head up from the waves. He's annoyed that Aeolus is churning up his ocean without permission. It's a turf war.
He's like, get off my lawn.
Pretty much. He calms the storm, and the battered Trojan fleet, just 7 ships left, washes up on the coast of Libya.
Which just so happens to be where Carthage is being built by Queen Dido.
Conveniently, yes. Aeneas and his trusted friend Achates go exploring, and Venus appears to them, disguised as a young Spartan huntress. Virgil loves these divine disguises.
She doesn't just reveal herself.
No, she plays a role. She tells them the whole story of Dido and the city, then she shrouds them in a magical mist so they can walk into the city completely unseen.
And what they see there is heartbreaking. It's a really powerful moment.
It's incredible. They see a temple Dido is building to Juno, and on the walls of this temple there are paintings of the Trojan War.
So he sees his own life, his own suffering, depicted as art.
Exactly. He sees the death of his friends, he sees Achilles dragging Hector's body, and he says, here too, there are tears for things. Sunt lacrimae rerum.
That's one of the most famous lines in all of Latin literature.
It means that suffering is universal. Even here in this strange foreign land, people understand pain and loss. It connects them. At that moment, the mist dissolves, and Dido welcomes them warmly. She's incredibly hospitable.
But Venus isn't taking any chances. She wants Dido firmly on Team Aeneas.
She's the ultimate helicopter mom. She wants Dido to be more than just hospitable. She wants her to be completely devoted to protecting Aeneas. So she sends her other son, Cupid, the god of love, to disguise himself as Aeneas' son, Ascanius.
That is devious, using a child as a weapon.
It is. So during the welcome banquet, while Queen Dido is bouncing the boy on her knee, cuddling him, Cupid breathes on her and poisons her with an obsessive, burning love for Aeneas. He erases the memory of her dead husband.
So this isn't just natural love, it's a divine curse, in a way.
Absolutely. And by the end of book 1, she is completely hooked. She hangs on his every word. And she asks Aeneas to tell her his story from the beginning.
Which leads us directly to book 2. The flashback. This is the blockbuster movie section, the fall of Troy.
And we really need to dig into the imagery here, because this is some of the best writing in antiquity. It is visceral.
So Aeneas tells the story. It starts with the Trojan horse.
Right. The Greeks pretend to sail away, leaving this massive wooden horse on the beach. Most Trojans are celebrating, but the priest Laocoon warns them. He says the famous line, "I fear the Greeks even when bearing gifts." He even throws a spear into the horse's side.
But then something happens that convinces the Trojans he's wrong.
Something terrifying. 2 giant snakes come slithering out of the sea. They go straight for Laocoon and his 2 young sons, coiling around them, crushing them, biting them. A horrific death.
And the Trojans take this as a sign that he offended the gods, and the horse must be holy.
Exactly. So they tear down a section of their own walls to bring the enemy inside the gates, and that night, it's a slaughter.
How does Aeneas find out?
He wakes up from a dream. The ghost of Hector Troy's greatest dead hero appears to him. But Hector looks terrible, covered in the dust and blood from when Achilles dragged him behind his chariot. He tells Aeneas, "It's over. The city is lost. You have to run. Take the household gods and go found a new city across the sea."
But Aeneas doesn't listen at first.
No, his first instinct is rage, the Homeric hero instinct. This is the furor, the battle madness, fighting against his destiny, his pietas. He grabs his weapons and wants to die fighting.
But the scene that really gets me, the one that turns the tide for him, is the death of King Priam, the old king.
It's a horrifying sacrilegious scene. Pyrrhus, the brutal son of Achilles, breaks into the palace. He chases one of Priam's sons, Polites, down the hall and kills him right in front of his parents on the altar.
In front of his father and mother.
Yes. Priam, who is far too old to fight, puts on his armor and throws a weak, useless spear at Pyrrhus. Pyrrhus just laughs, grabs the old man by the hair, drags him through his own son's blood to the altar, and slaughters him.
It's not just killing, it's butchery, it's defilement. And Aeneas sees this and finally realizes there is no glory here. This isn't noble combat. This is just death.
Exactly. He suddenly remembers his own old father, his own wife, his own son. He realizes he has to save them. He runs home. And we get that iconic image.
The ultimate symbol of pietas.
Aeneas is carrying his crippled father, Anchises, on his shoulders. Anchises is carrying the sacred statues of the household gods. And Aeneas is holding his little son Ascanius by the hand.
Sporting the past, guiding the future. It's an incredible image. But he loses someone in the escape, doesn't he?
He loses his wife, Creusa. In the chaos of fleeing the burning city, she falls behind and gets lost. Aeneas, distraught, goes back into the burning city for her. He's frantic. He's shouting her name in the fiery streets.
But he only finds her ghost.
Yes. Her ghost appears and tells him not to grieve. She says, "This is the will of the gods. You have to go. A new kingdom and a royal wife await you in the west, in Italy."
It's tragic, but narratively it clears the slate.
It does. He can't found a new race with a Trojan wife. The prophecy requires him to marry an Italian one.
So they escape. They build a fleet. And that brings us to book 3, which is The Wanderings. Basically a travelogue of where on earth should we live.
And it's a long series of failures and false starts. It shows how difficult this destiny is. They try to build a city in Thrace, but when Aeneas pulls up some saplings to make an altar, the roots start to drip black blood.
That's horrifying.
It is. It turns out to be the grave of Polydorus, a Trojan prince who was sent there for safekeeping and then murdered for his gold. The land is polluted. They have to leave.
Then they go to Crete thinking that's their ancestral home.
And a terrible plague hits them. The crops wither. The people start dying. The sun is scorching. It's clearly not the right place. Finally, the statues of the household gods appear to Aeneas in a dream and say, "You got it wrong. Your ancient home is Italy. You need to go to Italy."
So it's a long, hard journey of trial and error.
It is. They encounter the Harpies, these grotesque bird women who steal and befoul their food and then curse them, saying they'll be so hungry they'll eat their own tables.
Which is a prophecy that actually comes true in a funny way later on.
It does. And they sail past the island of the Cyclops.
And this is a cool little crossover moment. They find a guy named Echimenides, right? A Greek soldier who got left behind by Odysseus.
Yes. It's Virgil deliberately nodding to Homer, saying, "My story happens in the same shared universe." This ragged, terrified Greek one of their mortal enemies begs the Trojans to take him with them.
And Aeneas agrees.
He does. It shows a moment of Roman mercy, clementia, contrasting it with the perceived cruelty of the Greeks like Odysseus who abandoned him. But the book ends on a very sad note. They finally reach Sicily, and Anchises, Aeneas' father and his moral compass, dies of old age.
Aeneas loses his anchor. He is now the patriarch, the sole leader. And that brings us right back to the present, to Carthage, and to Book 4, the tragedy of Dido.
This is the emotional core of the first half of the poem, and probably the most debated book in the entire epic.
It's an absolute masterpiece of psychological drama.
It really is. Dido is consumed by this magical love. She confides in her sister, Anna, that she's falling for Aeneas but feels bound by a vow to her dead husband.
And her sister gives her some terrible advice.
Terrible, but practical. Anna says, "You're young. Why waste your life in mourning? Besides, an alliance with these Trojans would make Carthage strong." So Dido gives in to her passion. She's neglecting her city. The cranes stop moving on the construction sites. The walls stop rising. She's obsessed.
And Juno sees this and thinks, perfect. If Dido can keep Aeneas here in Carthage, he'll never found Rome. My city will be safe.
So Juno and Venus, who just wants her son to be safe and comfortable for a while, conspire to arrange a match.
That sounds innocent. But they engineer a storm during a royal hunt. Dido and Aeneas get separated from the group and end up taking shelter alone in the same caves.
And here is the central ambiguity. Virgil describes the scene with elemental fury. Lightning flashes, nymphs howl on the mountaintops. To Dido, this is a wedding ceremony. Nature itself is witnessing and sanctifying their union.
And to Aeneas.
Well, Virgil is silent on Aeneas's thoughts. He's a man alone in a cave with a beautiful queen who is passionately in love with him. He goes along with it.
So they live together as king and queen. He starts acting like the consort of Carthage. He's wearing Tyrian purple, a gift from her. He's overseeing her construction projects. He's totally forgotten his mission. He's comfortable.
But the gods do not let heroes stay comfortable. Rumor spreads and it reaches Jupiter, who looks down and is furious. He sends the messenger god Mercury down to scream at Aeneas.
What's the message?
It's brutal. Mercury finds Aeneas supervising the construction and says, "What are you doing? You're building a city for a woman, forgetting your own kingdom. What about your son's destiny? If you don't care about your own glory, at least think of Ascanius. You are cheating him out of Rome."
And Aeneas just folds. He doesn't argue. He doesn't say, "But I love her."
Immediately, he is terrified of the gods. His hair stands on end. He tells his men to pack up the ships in secret. He plans to just slip away like a thief in the night.
But Dido senses it. Who can deceive a lover, as Virgil asks?
She finds out, and the confrontation is one of the most brutal scenes in literature. She corners him. She's not a weeping victim. She's enraged. She screams, "Is this how you leave me? In the middle of winter? Did our love, our marriage mean nothing? I gave you everything. I made you welcome."
And Aeneas' defense is the most maddening Roman lawyer response possible. It's so cold.
It is. He says, "I will never deny that you deserve thanks, but I never promised you marriage. I never held the bridal torch. That was your interpretation."
Oh, that is a low blow.
And then the killer line, "I am not going to Italy of my own free will. It is my duty. Italiam non sponte sequor. I follow Italy not of my own choice."
Wait, I have to push back here. That is just unbelievably cold. It makes him look like an absolute jerk. Is the reader supposed to side with him in this moment?
That is the central tension. To a Roman Stoic, Aeneas is doing the hardest, most admirable thing possible. He is suppressing his personal emotion for the greater good of the state. He is like an oak tree, battered by winds. Virgil uses this simile. His leaves shake, his tears fall, but his roots hold fast. His will doesn't change.
But to us, and likely to many of Virgil's contemporary readers, he looks like a monster. He is emotionally destroying a human being for an abstract idea of a city he's never even seen.
And destroy her he does. Dido is completely broken. As the Trojan ships sail away, she climbs onto a massive pyre she had built in the palace courtyard. She had told her sister it was a magic ritual to get over him. She puts his armor, his effigy, and their bed on top of it.
A funeral for their love.
And then she climbs onto it and stabs herself with Aeneas' own sword, a gift he had left behind. But just before she dies, she pronounces a terrible curse. She prays that her people and his people will be enemies forever.
Let no love or treaty unite our nations. Rise up from my bones, some avenging spirit.
Yes. And this is Virgil masterfully explaining the Punic Wars. The great existential wars between Rome and Carthage, Hannibal crossing the Alps with his elephants, all of that real bloody Roman history is grounded here in a single lover's dying curse. It connects the mythic past to the historical present.
It's absolutely brilliant. So Aeneas sails away, and he sees the smoke rising from Carthage on the horizon, but he doesn't know what it means.
He doesn't. He just knows something terrible has happened.
Book 5, after that intensity, seems like a bit of a breather.
It is a palate cleanser, but a purposeful one. A storm forces them to return to Sicily, to the friendly kingdom of Acestes. It's the one-year anniversary of Anchises' death, so Aeneas decides to hold funeral games in his father's honor.
Which are basically the ancient Olympics.
Exactly. Boat races, foot races, boxing, archery. It's a chance for the Trojans to rebuild their community and morale. It also establishes Aeneas as a fair and competent leader and judge, handing out prizes.
But Juno is not done meddling.
Never. She sends a messenger, Iris, disguised as an old woman, down to the Trojan women who are gathered on the beach. They are sick and tired of traveling, 7 years on the sea.
I can't blame them.
Iris incites them to burn the ships. She throws the first torch. "Let's build a city right here and stop wandering," and they do it.
Aeneas has to pray to Jupiter for a rainstorm to save the fleet. He loses 4 ships. He realizes that some people just aren't cut out for the rest of this difficult journey.
Right. So he makes a wise decision. He leaves the elderly, the weary, and those who have lost their nerve behind in Sicily to found a new city called Acesta. Only the hardcore, most dedicated crew moves on.
To Book 6, the pivot point of the entire epic, the underworld.
This is the journey to the center. Aeneas finally lands in Cumae in Italy. He goes to see the famous Sibyl, a terrifying prophetess who lives in a cave and speaks in riddles.
And she tells him that to truly understand his destiny and succeed, he has to go down to the land of the dead to talk to his father. But first, he needs a ticket.
The Golden Bough, a magical golden branch hidden deep in a dark forest. The Sibyl tells him that if fate allows him to go, the branch will break off easily into his hand. If not, no force on earth can take it.
And when Aeneas, guided by his mother's doves, finds it, it hesitates, doesn't it? There's a strange detail there.
There is. Virgil uses the word cumtentum, which means lingering or hesitating. The bough resists him for a moment before he pulls it free. Scholars have debated this for centuries. Does it mean fate is reluctant? Or is it that Aeneas is forcing his destiny? It's a great unsettling detail.
So with the bough in hand, he and the Sibyl go down, and Virgil's underworld isn't just a generic spooky cave, it's a whole geography of morality.
It's incredibly bureaucratic and organized. There's a river Styx, there are holding areas for infants who died, for those who were falsely accused, for suicides, and then there's the fields of mourning for those who died of a broken heart.
And there, Aeneas sees Dido.
He does. This is the closure we've been waiting for.
Or the closure we are denied. It's a devastating scene.
It is. He weeps. He sees her, fresh from her wound, and he tells her, "I swear by the stars, I swear by the gods, I left your shore unwillingly." He tries to explain himself.
But Dido,
She stands like a block of hard flint. She doesn't look at him. She doesn't speak a single word. She turns her back on him and tears herself away, running back to the shade of her first husband, Sichaeus, who comforts her there.
her silence is so much louder than any curse she could have shouted. It's a total final rejection of him and his entire destiny.
It absolutely is. Aeneas is shaken, but he has to move on. He passes Tartarus, the fiery pit of punishment for the truly wicked, and finally enters the Elysian fields, the paradise for heroes. And there he finds his father, Anchises.
And this is the climax of the first half of the poem. Anchises isn't just hanging out playing a harp. He's watching a parade.
He is. He's watching the parade of heroes, a long line of souls who are waiting to be reborn as the future heroes of Rome. And Anchises points them out one by one.
This is the big reveal.
This is the political payload. Anchises points out Romulus, who will found the city. He shows him the great kings, the heroes of the Republic like Brutus and the Gracchi, and then the crown jewel of the whole prophecy.
Look, he says, turn your eyes here. Here is Caesar and all the line of Elis. This is the man, this is him, Caesar Augustus, son of a god, who will bring back the golden age.
This is what Augustus paid for. This is Virgil telling the emperor, "Your rule is not an accident of civil war. It is the culmination of all history, foreseen by the gods from the very beginning." Anchises is basically saying, all that suffering, Troy, Dato, Creusa, it was all worth it because this is what you are building.
It confirms the mission. It gives Aeneas the purpose he's been lacking.
It does. Aeneas leaves the underworld not just as a weary wanderer, but as a man with a clear divine destiny. He understands the weight of what he carries. Though interestingly, he exits through the Ivory Gate, the Gate of False Dreams, which is another weird scholarly rabbit hole that has kept classicists busy for ages.
And that wraps up the Odyssey half. Before we sail into the Iliad, half the years of war, we're going to take a brief pause.
Yes, just a moment to remind you that producing these deep dives takes a lot of research, a lot of coffee, and a lot of late-night reading.
It sure does. So if you are enjoying this journey from the ashes of Troy to the foundation of Rome, please consider hitting that subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to.
It's the best way to support the show.
And it ensures you never miss a deep dive. We'll be right back with the War for Italy. And we are back. We left Aeneas freshly pumped up from a pep talk with his dead dad in the underworld. He sails up the coast of Italy and finally reaches the promised land. Laudium, the region of the Tiber River. This is book 7.
The second half, the Iliad begins, and at first it looks like things might actually go smoothly for once.
For about 5 minutes.
Right. The local king, King Latinus, is ruling there. He's old, and he has a prophecy that his daughter, Lavinia, must not marry a local prince, but should marry a foreigner to create a great blended race.
So when Aeneas and his Trojans show up, Latina says, "Great, you're the guy. Here, take my daughter. Let's make an alliance." Problem solved.
But Juno is watching from the heavens, and she's not having it. She says one of her most famous lines, "If I cannot move heaven, I will raise up hell."
Chilly.
She says, I might not be able to keep him from becoming king, but I can drag this out and make it as bloody and miserable as possible.
So she unleashes chaos.
She summons a fury named Electo from the underworld, a literal demon of discord, with snakes for hair.
Oh.
And Electo flies down and infects everyone with rage. She throws a snake at Queen Amata, Latinus' wife, who goes into a Bacchic frenzy, hating the Trojans. She then flies to Turnus, the Rutulian prince who was engaged to Lavinia, and fills him with a burning lust for war and righteous indignation.
And then she causes a really stupid, trivial accident to spark the actual fighting. It's never a big principle. It's always something small.
It always is. The incident of the stag. Aeneas' son, Ascanius, is out hunting. He shoots a magnificent stag. But it turns out this wasn't just any deer, it was a beloved pet of the local Latin farmers. It was tame, it wore garlands in its antlers, it came when called.
Oh, no.
The farmer's daughter finds it dying. The farmers are furious, a brawl starts, farmers get killed, Trojans get killed, and suddenly the whole region is screaming for war.
King Latinus tries to stop it, but he's just an old man. He's overwhelmed by the mob. He retreats to his palace and locks the doors.
So Juno herself comes down from Olympus and bursts open the great gates of war, a ritual act in Rome, and now it is on.
So Book 8,
Mm-hmm.
Aeneas realizes he's in trouble. He's in a foreign land, and he's completely outnumbered. He needs allies.
He does. He has a dream where the river god Tiber tells him to go upriver to a small settlement called Pallanteum.
Which is actually the future side of Rome.
Exactly. It's a powerful moment. Virgil describes Aeneas walking on the very ground where the Roman Forum and the Capitoline Hill will be, but right now it's just cows and forests and simple huts.
And who does he meet there?
He meets King Evander, a Greek exile living there. Evander is a crucial character. He's old and poor, but good. He welcomes Aeneas. He's too old to fight himself, but he pledges his support. And he gives Aeneas the most precious thing he has, his son Pallas, to lead his troops.
This moment is key for the second half of the epic. Evander holds Aeneas' hand and says, "Take my son. Teach him the harsh ways of war. Keep him safe. Because if he dies, I don't want to live."
It's an incredibly heavy burden. Aeneas effectively becomes Pallas's guardian. He takes responsibility for this boy. While this is happening, Venus decides Aeneas needs an armor upgrade.
Like in a video game.
Pretty much. She goes to her husband, Vulcan, the blacksmith god, and convinces him to make divine armor for Aeneas.
Including the famous Shield of Aeneas. And we need to talk about this because it's not just a piece of metal, it's a major piece of symbolism.
It's an ekphrasis, a long, detailed description of a work of art. And on this shield, Vulcan has hammered out the entire future history of Rome. He shows the wolf suckling Romulus and Remus. He shows the geese saving the capital from the Gauls. And right in the center, the main event.
The Battle of Actium.
Augustus's great victory over Antony and Cleopatra.
So this is pure propaganda again.
It is, but it's brilliant propaganda. Virgil depicts it as a cosmic battle. On one side, you have Augustus leading the Romans, with the Roman gods Apollo, Neptune, Venus behind him. On the other side, you have Antony and Cleopatra with what Virgil calls a monstrous host of strange animal-headed gods of Egypt. Anubis barking.
It's order versus chaos, west versus east, civilization versus decadence.
Exactly. So when Aeneas licks that shield, Virgil writes that he is lifting the fame and fate of his descendants onto his shoulder. It's such a powerful image. He's literally carrying the future.
He doesn't even know what the pictures mean, but he carries the weight.
He bears the burden.
Meanwhile, back at the camp in Book 9, while Aeneas is away getting these allies, Turnus makes his move.
Turnus is a beast in this book. He attacks the Trojan camp. The Trojans are holed up, following Aeneas' strict orders not to fight in an open field battle. So Turnus decides to burn their ships.
But the ships turn into sea nymphs and swim away. That's a weird moment.
A very weird moment of divine intervention. It's a sign that the Trojans are divinely protected. But the real core of Book 9 is the tragedy of Nisus and Euryalus.
Oh, this story just breaks my heart every time. Tell us about them.
They are lovers, or at the very least, inseparable best friends. Nisus is the older, more experienced warrior. Euryalus is young and beautiful and eager for glory. They decide to volunteer for a suicide mission, sneak out of the besieged camp at night, and get a message through to Aeneas.
And at first, it goes great.
It does. They sneak through the enemy camp. The Rutulians are all drunk and asleep around their fires, and Nisus and Euryalus are slaughtering them in their sleep. It's a brutal, bloody massacre.
But they get greedy, or rather, Euryalus does.
He does. He's young. He gets carried away. He starts taking trophies. He steals some shiny armor, including a fancy polished helmet. As they are finally leaving, the moonlight reflects off that stolen helmet. A troop of enemy cavalry riding back to camp sees the glint in the darkness.
A tiny mistake with fatal consequences.
They chase them down. Nisus, being faster, gets away into the woods. But when he stops, he realizes Euryalus isn't with him. He's been captured.
He could have saved himself, but he goes back.
He sees Euryalus surrounded. He throws spears from the shadows, trying to create a diversion, but it's too late. The enemy commander stabs Euryalus through the heart.
And Virgil's description is just beautiful and awful.
He says Euryalus' head slumps over, like a purple flower cut down by a plow. It's so delicate and so horrifying. Nisus, in a frenzy of grief and rage, rushes in, kills the commander who killed Euryalus, and then dies falling over the body of his friend.
And to make it even more cruel, the next morning the Rutulians put their heads on pikes and parade them in front of the Trojan camp walls.
Euryalus' mother sees it. Her grief is described in such raw detail. She tears her face, she screams, she wishes for death. It's Virgil reminding us again, war isn't glorious. It's waste. It's mothers watching their beautiful sons die for a stolen helmet.
Absolutely devastating. So, Book X. The tides turn. Aeneas finally returns with his new Etruscan allies.
And the battle is joined in earnest. This is the bloodiest book of the poem. But the real turning point is the duel between Turnus and the young prince Pallas.
The boy Aeneas promised to protect.
The very one. Pallas fights bravely. He takes down many enemies, but he's a boy. Turnus is a seasoned, brutal warrior. Turnus overpowers him and kills him with a massive spear through the chest.
And this is the fatal mistake Turnus makes. It's not killing Pallas, but what he does next.
Exactly. He stands over the body, filled with arrogance. He rips off Pallas's heavy, ornate sword belt. It has a scene of a mythic crime engraved on it, and he puts it on his own shoulder as a trophy. He taunts the body, saying, "Tell your father, Evander, I sent him back his son as he deserved."
Aeneas hears about Pallas's death, and he snaps. The pious mask falls off completely.
He goes into a berserker rage, a killing frenzy. He is no longer the stoic leader. He takes 4 young men captive specifically to be human sacrifices at Pallas's funeral pyre. He mocks enemies, begging for their lives.
But there's a moment of humanity, isn't there? With Mezentius and Lausus?
Yes. He fights the cruel tyrant Mezentius and wounds him. Mezentius' noble son, Lausus, sees his father is in danger and jumps in front of Aeneas to save him.
Another father-son moment?
A direct parallel to Aeneas and Anchises. Aeneas, annoyed, kills Lausus, but as he looks at the dying boy's face, he is suddenly struck with pity. He thinks of his own love for his father and his son. He feels a pang of humanity return. He doesn't take the armor. He gently allows Lausus' men to take the body back for burial.
So even in his rage, there's a flicker of the old Aeneas.
Wonderful.
Moving to Book 11. After a brief truce for burials, the war resumes, and we need to talk about Camilla.
Camilla is incredible. She is one of the most memorable characters in the second half. She's the warrior queen of the Volscians, fighting for Turnus' side.
And she has a wild backstory.
She was raised in the wilderness by her father, who dedicated her as an infant to the goddess Diana. She was suckled by a wild mare. She's a virgin warrior who can run so fast she can skim across a field of wheat without bending the stalks.
She just dominates the battlefield.
She does. She's like an Amazon. She's taking down Trojans left and right with her javelin and her axe. She is unstoppable. But she has a weakness.
A very human weakness.
Vanity, or at least a desire for a beautiful prize. She sees a Trojan priest named Clorius who is wearing fabulous, shiny, golden armor. He's all decked out.
Yeah.
And she gets distracted. She wants that armor as a trophy.
She chases him.
She chases him, letting her guard down, focusing only on him. And an Etruscan soldier named Arens, who has been stalking her, sees his chance. He prays to Apollo, throws his spear, and hits her right below her exposed breast.
Her death is a huge blow to the Latin army. It causes their lines to break.
It does. Her last words are to her companion, telling her to ride to Turnus and let him know. "Take command! The battle is lost here." And that sets the stage for the finale.
Book 12. The showdown.
The armies are exhausted and battered. They agree to end it all with a single combat. A duel. Aeneas versus Turnus. Winner takes all, including the Princess Lavinia.
But Juno interferes one last time.
One last time. She can't let it be that easy. She sends Turnus' sister, Juturna, who is a minor river nymph goddess, disguised as a soldier, to break the truce. She incites the Latins to attack. Fighting erupts all over again.
Aeneas gets wounded by a stray arrow, but his mother Venus swoops in with a magic healing herb, and he's back in the fight. He realizes he can't just chase Turnus. He has to threaten the city of Latium itself. He leads an attack on the walls.
Seeing this, Queen Amata, thinking Turnus must be dead and that all is lost, hangs herself in the palace. The city is panicking. Turnus finally sees the devastation and realizes he can't run from his fate anymore. He tells his sister to back off. I will face him. Let me trade my life for my honor.
And so the duel finally begins. But first, there's a meeting in the heavens.
A crucial one. Jupiter and Juno finally have a sit-down. Jupiter says, look, it's over. You know Aeneas is going to win. It's fate. Stop this.
And Juno finally agrees, but she has one condition. And this is so important for explaining why the Roman Empire looks the way it does.
It is the cultural punchline of the whole poem. She says, fine, let the Trojans win, let them merge with the Latins, but let the name Troy die forever. Let the people be called Latins. Let them speak Latin, not Trojan. Let them wear togas.
Let the Italian culture absorb the Trojan bloodline.
Precisely. Jupiter agrees. This explains to Virgil's audience why they are Romans who speak Latin, not new Trojans who speak some variant of Phrygian. The Trojan lineage is the seed, but the culture becomes Italian.
So the gods make peace. Back on the ground, the duel is on. Aeneas throws his spear. It goes through Turnus's shield and wounds him deep in the thigh. Turnus collapses.
And here we are, the final, critical moment of the entire epic. Turnus is on his knees. He is wounded, helpless. He lifts his hand, and he begs for mercy.
He doesn't beg for his life exactly.
No, he says, I have earned my fate. But I have an old father, Daunus. Pity him, just as you once loved your own father, Anchises. You have won. Lavinia is yours. Don't go further in your hatred. Spare me, or at least send my body back to my people.
And Aeneas hesitates. This is crucial. Virgil writes that he stood there, he rolled his eyes, he held back his hand. He was actually considering mercy. Pietas Roman duty would suggest sparing the defeated, to spare the conquered and ward down the proud. That's the Roman motto Anchises taught him.
He was on the verge of granting it, but then his eyes catch something. A glint of metal on Turnus's shoulder.
The belt.
The sword belt of Pallas, hanging there like a trophy, and the flash of the studs brings the memory of his grief, of the boy he promised to protect, rushing back.
And the rage. The furor comes back.
Fury set him on fire, the text says. All thought of mercy is gone. He yells, will you escape me now, wearing the spoils of my friend? It is Pallas who sacrifices you with this stroke. It is Pallas who takes this payment from your wicked blood. And he buries his sword deep in Turnus's chest.
And that's it. That's the end.
That is the end. The poem ends with the line, and with a groan, life fled indignant to the shadows, full stop.
Wait, I have to stop us here. That is a shocking, brutal ending. Aeneas spends this entire epic learning about duty and piety and controlling his rage. Turnus is beaten, he's begging, the war is won, and Aeneas just snaps. That feels like a failure. That feels like he lost the moral high ground right at the finish line.
That is the exact tension Virgil wants you to feel. That is the entire point. You want him to be the bigger man. You expect him to be the merciful Augustan figure bringing peace. But the visual of Pallas's belt acts like a trigger, and the private grief overwhelms the public duty of clemency. It suggests that despite all the civilization and law that Rome will bring, at its very foundation, there is still raw tribal vengeance.
So does Aeneas fail the final test of mercy?
Or does he fulfill his ultimate duty of pietas to the dead Pallas? It's completely ambiguous. Is he an avenger, or is he a murderer? The text doesn't say, and then he founded Rome and they all lived happily ever after. It ends on indignant. It ends on anger. It ends on violence.
Let's try to synthesize this then as we wrap up. What is the ultimate takeaway here?
I think the Aeneid constantly asks a single haunting question. Is the destination worth the journey? Aeneas gets Italy. He founds the lineage of Rome, which will rule the world, but he loses his wife, he loses his city, he loses his father, he loses his lover Dido, he loses his friend Pallas, and in that final moment, you could argue he loses his own soul, his own control.
It's the ultimate sacrifice for the greater good story, but Virgil doesn't shy away from showing you the blood on the floor. It's not a clean, heroic cartoon.
Precisely. It's propaganda for Augustus, sure. Look at our glorious, divinely ordained past. But it's also a profound and melancholy warning. Look at what it cost to get here. Don't forget the ghosts. Tread carefully.
And you mentioned the source text, the translation by Rodrigo Mendes. How does that play into this?
The notes in our source mention that his Portuguese is famously difficult, it's knotted, and it's challenging. And that's appropriate because the moral questions Virgil is asking are knotted and challenging. There are no easy answers in this poem.
That is a powerful place to land. From the ashes of Troy to the foundation of the Roman people, it is a journey of duty, rage, heartbreak, and profound ambiguity.
a masterpiece that still resonates and still disturbs us 2,000 years later.
Indeed. And we're going to leave you with a final thought to mull over. The poem ends with Turnus's soul fleeing to the shadows, indignant. Why indignant? Is it indignant because he was a young man cut down in his prime? Or is it because, in the face of an unstoppable, fated empire, the individual's fight for their home is always doomed, and that fundamental injustice echoes forever?
Something to think about.
Thank you so much for tuning in to DFC Books. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into Virgil's Aeneid. Don't forget to leave those requests in the comments for what you want to hear next. We'll see you next time.